Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. My guest tonight is one of Australia's finest guitarists. Starting at the tender age of 15 in a Melbourne band called The Moods, he went on to join one of Australia's best-known pop groups of the 60s, the Vibrance. Their big hit, Something About You Babe, stayed in the Australian charts for 25 weeks. He's still playing with Australia's finest artists. Would you please welcome Mick Hamilton? Mick, thank you for coming in. My old buddy.
Yeah.
Not so old buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. You're a Melbourne boy.
Yep.
Where are you born?
I was born just up the road here in Bentley. Well, actually, no, I was born in Elsternwick, but grew up in Bentley. Yeah.
So, from a musical family?
Not really. Mum and Dad used to do jitterbug demonstrations, so they were dancers. But yeah, but they didn't play really. Dad played a bit of piano, but no, they weren't really musical. No.
So how did the passion for guitar start?
I went to see, when I was 10, my dad took me to Festival Hall to see Big Joe Turner and Bill Haley and the Comets and Laverne Baker and the Platters and Freddie Bell and the Bellboys. And I came away at 10 years old just starstruck and thinking that's what I want to do. And I went home and built a guitar out of old bits of wood and rubber bands and twanged around the house for I don't know how long.
So how good did that sound?
Oh, really good. Yeah.
Really good, yeah. So did Dad buy you a guitar?
He did eventually, but I was too small and my hands were too small to actually get around the guitar. Guitars in those days, cheap ones, were big lumps of wood and fencing wire, you know, and I couldn't play them. So he got me a banjo mandolin, which I played for about a year and a half.
So I read that the school you went to was at Brighton High?
Brighton High, yep.
Had quite a few well-known musos.
Yeah, well, there was Keith Glass, who was in Hair and some bands in the 60s, like 18th Century Quartet.
I think he's in the States now, isn't he?
He's in the States, lives in Mobile. And he and I still write and record together. Ross Hannaford was there.
Daddy Cool?
Yeah. Who else was there?
Ross Wilson?
No, Ross was just up the road
at
at Haileybury, yeah, a couple of schools away. But yeah, it was a bit of... Oh, and Kim Lynch, who was the bass player in the Loved Ones, who were a huge band in the 60s, he was there. So it was a bit of a musical school, yeah.
Tell us about The Moods.
The Moods. Okay, they were a Richmond band, they were all inner city boys, and I actually saw them play at Festival Hall on one of the Sunday afternoon concerts once, and I thought, wow, those guys are really cool. And there was an ad in something or other, maybe on Stan Roast's radio show or something, saying band looking for guitar player. So I went to the audition and it was those guys. And I thought, oh, this is cool, but I'll never get this gig because I don't look right. I used to have brush back hair and big slick back hair, and these were really cool long-haired dudes.
Oh, they were? What sort of stuff were they playing?
They were playing original stuff a lot and a bit of sort of Kinks and Rolling Stones stuff, as everybly was, and Beatles things. And
you'd been playing sort of more like the Shadows stuff?
Well, yeah, that and Chuck Berry and more bluesy rock stuff. And although I was into the Stones, I played a lot of Stones stuff. But, so anyway, I think I got the gig because I had a panel van. But,
I love that. Yeah. So you don't really know why you got the gig to this day?
Well, no, I don't, but I reckon that
Did they use the van?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My brother's got a panel van. I love that. Okay, so now The Moods did record. Is that...
We did 2 singles, which didn't really do anything, but they were going to be the next big thing. There was
Who did you sign with?
HMV, which was a subsidiary of EMI. And we got huge raves. It was going to be the next big band, the next big single, and just never happened. We supported the Stones, and that was going to be the beginning.
Did you?
Yeah, on their second tour, and that was going to be the beginning of everything. You know.
So was it just The Moods supporting them?
No, it was The Moods. It was Max and the Meteors and the Twilights.
Wow.
And the Searchers and the Stones came out.
And so it just sort of, disappointment, I guess? And
yeah, it just didn't go anywhere. Just one thing, you know, one dead end after another, and it just didn't happen.
So then...
I bailed. Well, I didn't bail. I was actually headhunted by a band called the Vibrance.
And they were in Adelaide. Were they Adelaide band, yeah?
Yeah, they came over from Adelaide to test the waters in Melbourne, and their guitar player didn't want to make the move, but they did, so they came over and needed a guitar player.
So, okay, we'll take a quick break.
Yep.
Come back with a big chat about the Vibrance, because I know that you guys had a huge hit.
Yeah.
Well, you had lots
a couple
of hits.
actually.
You actually had a lot of hits, but Something About You, Babe stayed in the charts for something like 25 weeks.
Yeah, about 6 months, yeah.
I mean, if that happened these days.
Yeah, lots of luck with that one.
Lots of luck with that. We'll be back really shortly.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My special guest tonight is Mick Hamilton, guitarist extraordinaire. Okay, we were at the stage where you were headhunted by a band from Adelaide who'd, before you joined, already had quite a few hits.
Not
Adelaide?
really. They'd had sort of regional Adelaide hits, yeah. I don't think they'd ever had a hit. Well, they hadn't had a hit outside of Adelaide, no.
And so they did what most bands from apart from Sydney, other states did, was either choose to go to Melbourne or Sydney.
Well, pretty much Melbourne, really. In that period, the mid-60s, it was Melbourne. Everyone came to Melbourne. I mean, Doug Parkinson moved from Sydney, Maximum the Meteors all came down from Sydney. Everyone.
Billy Thorpe moved from...
Pretty much, yeah.
Was it
But
Sydney
probably a
or
little
Queensland, yeah?
possibly later, I'm not sure, but certainly came to Melbourne. And so did everyone from Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, Tasmania. They just...
So where did you record Something About You, Babe?
Armstrong's down in Bill Armstrong's studio.
And that was
Road.
in Albert Road.
Albert Road, yep. And
Everybody recorded down there.
everybody recorded there. David Mackay did all the EMI stuff. Roger Savage engineered. I don't know what other companies, but I think everybody recorded there. They had the first 4-track in Melbourne, the first 8-track.
Nearly everybody I've interviewed
Yeah.
has spoken about Bill Armstrong's.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of what went on to become AAV.
Yeah,
In Bank
in a
Street.
different location, yeah.
So Something About You, Babe was a big hit.
Huge hit, yeah.
Huge hit.
It was bigger than it actually reads in all the books now, because it was over 2 years. It was sort of a hit for 12 weeks in one year and a hit for 12 weeks in the next year. So it doesn't really come up as big as it was.
How does that happen? How does it happen? Did it just keep getting airplay
we
go up
released
the
it
chart?
late in the year and it became a huge hit and it kept going into the next year. So it actually made number 3 all over Australia.
And
Sydney
in some
was the only
places
place.
number 1.
Yeah, well, it made number 1 in Melbourne on a few charts, and certainly in Tassie and Tassie and Western Australia was number 1. But Sydney, for some reason, was lukewarm, and that's the only reason it wasn't a national number 1.
How did that change? Well, not just you, but everyone's life. I mean, just having this. Was it your first recording with the Vibrance?
It was the first one I did with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically, you've gone from playing in, obviously playing in well-known bands around Melbourne, but then, of course, you're a pop star.
Yeah, well, it was huge. I mean, it's different to today, obviously, because things were so much smaller and,
No film clips.
Well, we actually did a film clip, but that was one of the first ever. But if you think of, huge bands today and the hoo-ha that goes on around touring them, it's such a big thing. But in those days, you'd have four bands with top 10 records, and we'd all jump in a plane and go and work in Sydney and come back the same day. It was so small, But
Did anyone make any money?
Well, only by quantity of gigs. The actual money per gig wasn't very good, but you would do 5 gigs on a Saturday night.
I was going to say, did you do that crazy thing
Yeah,
of
exactly. Yeah.
Did they
So by the
use
end
your
of the
camel
night,
van?
no, by that time I actually had a Mini, would you believe?
Ah, smart man.
Yeah, from one end of the Melbourne to the other in a Mini. In my Mini I used to fit in my amp, my guitar, the sax players, tenor saxophone, baritone saxophone and stand, and an esky. All in the Mini with
All
two
in
of
the
us.
Mini, and the esky, of course.
The esky, yeah.
Who did you work with and support back then that actually sort of really, really had an impact on you?
Well, the Stones, obviously. I mean, and I still am a huge Stones fan. But strangely enough, we did a support for Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, and I, to this day, have never seen anyone more professional. Quite frankly, they were sensational. I mean, not my music at all, but it was the first time I'd ever seen a mixer out in the audience. They had a guy mixing. I'd never seen one before.
So the Stones didn't have that?
No.
Wow.
No, this is the first time we'd ever seen it. First time I'd ever seen anyone not turning their guitar up for a solo. The guy down the front did it, and we were astounded. We'd never
Where
seen
was that
anything like
at Festival Hall?
Hall, yeah. And even though it wasn't my sort of thing at all, the
It really-
professionalism
really
was just
had an impact
astounding.
on you.
Yeah.
I know that Well, obviously you went on to record quite a few singles, the Vibrance.
The Vibrance had about 4 or 5. 3 of them were quite big hits. Don't Let Your Left Hand Know and My Prayer were both top 10s.
Now also my old manager from Wendy and the Rockets, Jeff Skews, was in the Vibrance. He was the keyboard player.
He was, yeah.
And we had Rick Kent. Was Rick Kent
Yep, Rick was in the
you?
band. Rick Kent, Billy Pfeiffer on bass, and Hoss on sax, who's no longer with us, and John Perry was singing.
You guys went to Vietnam.
We did, not with that lineup, different lineup.
Different lineup?
Yep, we went to Vietnam and did a few weeks of shows for the troops over there.
I've seen some footage. You kindly showed me some footage. And you literally, was it like on the back of a truck?
Yeah, pretty much.
In the jungle?
Yeah, there was a couple of places where they actually had sort of rudimentary stages set up because they'd have shows coming through regularly, but a lot of it was just on the back of a truck, yeah.
Was anyone else on that particular tour with you?
Other
Apart from
artists?
the Vibrance artists?
There was a comic called Ray Gilson and a couple of girl singers, a girl called Lynn Dutton. And
I know Lynn.
You know Lynn?
Yeah.
And another girl called Verity and a girl called Julie Oliver. Yeah, so 3 girl singers, the band and Ray.
What was the reaction from the soldiers?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, they just loved having something going on. And I think every band that ever went there always finished off with leaving on a jet plane, and then you'd see grown men cry, you know. You just sit there and watch them bawl.
How safe did you feel?
Well, actually, it's pretty safe doing the shows. The most terrified I ever was actually getting out of a helicopter, sorry, when they'd actually been shooting at the jungle. We're in the helicopter, they're shooting down.
While you're in it?
Strangely enough, at the time, it didn't occur to me that perhaps someone was shooting back. That didn't cross my mind until we got off at wherever we were going and the guys started walking around the helicopter and putting their fingers in the bullet holes.
Yeah.
I got a bit scared then.
So when you came back, of course, to Melbourne, because it's your...
I didn't actually. I went to Sydney.
Oh.
I came to Melbourne for 5 minutes and realised there was nothing going on and moved to Sydney. So Sydney offered a bit of a chance to just do sessions and clubs and freelance, you know, work as a solo, not as a solo musician, but playing for various people. I didn't have to actually join up.
So what sort of acts would you have been playing with up there?
In those days?
Yeah.
Digby Richards, Lucky Star, all the bandstand crew, those sort of people. I ended up actually doing 6 or 7 years of touring with Val Doonican every time he came to Australia.
So how long did you stay in Sydney?
14 years. Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I did.
So you learn something every day.
And I'd had enough. I didn't like Sydney. I never liked it. Never liked living there. Just stayed for the work, basically.
Well, you obviously had 14 good years.
Well, yeah, 10 phenomenal years. I mean, there were 10 years there I was doing 10 gigs a week.
You'd be loaded.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, Mr. Loaded Guy, we'll take a short break and be back soon. Your shout.
Oh, okay.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. Mick,
Yes.
you've just returned from 14 years in Sydney. I don't mean now.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Then.
Yep, then.
You're loaded?
No, it wasn't loaded. No.
Yes, you were.
No, it wasn't.
So, okay, you've come back to Melbourne because, as you said, you had enough of Sydney. Your parents were getting older.
Yep.
Obviously had a lot of contacts through all the years of working in Sydney too. A lot of the Melbourne acts would have come through Sydney clubs, etc.
Yeah, well, not so much really. I mean, Melbourne had moved on so much since then. And when I came back, I really didn't do much for a while. I mean, I caught up with lots of old friends and stuff, which was all I really wanted to do. And bit by bit, I sort of slid back into doing stuff, mainly with people I'd known forever, like Chess. You know,
Johnny Chester.
who was on your show, of course.
Yeah.
Because
He's amazing, isn't he? He just keeps
going, yeah. Because I mean, I still play on his records now. You know.
You do?
Yeah.
So you would have been kept very busy with him because.
He was busy for a long time.
He's still going, isn't he?
Well, he doesn't work live much anymore. He's still recording now. I still get dragged out to do, you know, he's selling. Oh, I got 8 new tracks. So okay, we'll go and do those. But yeah, so there was Chess, and then I very slowly got back into the business in Melbourne. It was sort of a bit hard actually, because I'd been away so long. At that point I'd been away for 17 years.
And it can be quite clicky.
Oh yeah, and it changed so much in 17 years. I mean, well, for a start, when I left Melbourne, you were probably a little girl, you know. Suddenly when I came back to Melbourne, you're, you know, top of the tree.
No.
You know, people like you. So people like you had sprung up while I was gone. I mean, I'd met you sort of in the interim, but Melbourne was full of different people.
Yeah, and the scene was different too.
Yeah.
Especially with sort of like I guess the 80s, where it started to really change quite a lot with punk and all of that sort of thing too. So the whole scene changed, and then of course gradually the pub scene sort of started to close down as well.
Sort of collapse on itself, yeah.
On itself. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this. Because,
the new album?
Yes. Can you tell everyone about the John Laws experience? I'll just give you a lovely shot of that.
This is something that Keith Glass came up with. We mentioned Keith before.
Yeah.
He had this idea of taking some of John Laws's poetry, which comes from the 70s, it was very of its time, and putting it to music, which matched the period, you know, sort of psychedelic, garage punk, whatever, and making an album. And I thought it was the silliest thing I'd ever heard. But he talked me into it, and we did it, and it came out really well, and it's probably still the silliest thing I'd ever heard, but you know.
So John obviously came in on it too?
No, he didn't. Nothing to do with it. I mean, he had to give us permission to use the stuff, which he did, but he's just doesn't want to know about it. It's okay. So
how was it compiled? Sorry, run me
Well, Keith
through
and I
that.
just went in the studio with the lyrics. Well, we wrote the songs first, around the lyrics, went in the studio.
So John
recorded.
Laws didn't sing it, or?
No, it's us singing. Nikki Nicholls, who's one of your
good,
cohorts,
yeah.
is singing a couple of tracks on it. Keith and myself doing the rest, and there you go. It's actually very unusual, but it's of its time. As I said, the lyrics came from the 70s, so we tried to make the music of that period as well. So it's got sitars and, you know, sort of mellotrons and all sorts of weird stuff.
So Keith Glass, as we were saying before, he's in
Mobile, Alabama.
Is it Mobile or Mobile?
Mobile.
Mobile?
Mobile, Alabama.
How long has he been over there?
He's been in there for 5-6 years.
Because he, over a long period of time, has had a huge impact on the Australian music.
Well, yeah, in lots of ways. I mean, as a singer in Hair, as a band member, as a record company owner, he discovered Nick Cave, essentially.
Did he?
Yeah, with the birthday party, yeah.
Wow.
He was the first person to record him. He had a big record shop called Archie and Jughead's in Melbourne, which was a big import
place.
Record place, yeah.
Any more projects coming up with Keith? You might be going over to Mobile soon.
We're still trying to get over this one.
Well, Mick, thanks very much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing guitarist, lovely person, and
thank you.
We have a great time when we work together.
We do have a good time.
If we can get past Willie and Frank.
And the vodka.
And the vodka. We're going to take the show out with a clip that was actually produced and directed by Miss Nitz herself.
Ms.
She
Monk.
Who Must Be Obeyed. Over there, what's the name of the track that we're going
The track's
out with?
called Forget About It If You Can, and it's Nikki Nicholls singing it.
Oh, is it Nikki?
Yeah, it's Nikki.
Gorgeous.
And it's one of the tracks off this. So, John Law's lyrics, Keith Glass, Mick Hamilton music, Nikki Nicholls vocal. And there you go.
Beautiful. Thank you. Good night from Wrokdown, and we'll leave you with this.
Forget about that day last week when things were not so bad, or a smile, a thought about that love you nearly almost had. Forget about the fire you felt before you slapped his face, and how you self-indulged next day like a baby in disgrace. Forget about it if you can. 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 Forget about most everything. forget to wonder why. If you forget to forget about, you forget about not to cry. Forget about the tear you shed because you thought you should. How good you felt when shedding it, 'cause you never thought you could. Forget about it if you can. 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 Forget about that horror film that really wasn't horrid. Forget about that little line on the right side of your forehead. Forget about a love you left early one December. Forget about it if you can, but don't forget that I remember.